Welcome to the Reimagine podcast. Each week, give yourself 30 minutes and meet the people working hard to create the future of insurance today.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of the Reimagine podcast. And today we are going to talk about innovation and customer experience. Laura, hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, Paul. It's nice to be back again.
Yeah. Do you want to do the honors and introduce a great guest and a good friend over the years?
Absolutely. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Scott Campbell, Senior Vice President and Chief Client Officer for American National. I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion today. Scott, let's start out with a little bit about your backstory. Explain to us, who you are, what is it that you do?
Sure. Well, I've been in the insurance business for 22 some years now. Like a lot of probably every one of us, I had no intention of being in the insurance business for 22 years. I was actually just going to do it. I was started in TV news out of college and wanted to, that didn't kind of work out. And so I started doing some freelance writing. And basically, I just took it for a steady gig while I was getting my freelance writing career off the ground. And did some really hard-hitting pieces for some wedding magazines. And my treatise on fondant versus buttercream icing, I think, remains the seminal work in wedding journalism to this day. But, turns out you just kind of get into something. And I started as a copywriter and doing marketing communications for Mutual of Omaha. And, got into the marketing side and then joined American National Insurance in almost 10 years ago now, which is crazy. And running marketing for the multiple line distribution. And then had the opportunity about 4 years ago to be our first chief client officer and really take client experience as an enterprise function. We'd done a little bit of it on the side, but there was a kind of a desire to really start organizing that. And like a lot of companies, realize that importance of the client, which seems like it should be self-evident, but in our business, we tend to forget about them sometimes, the people who are actually giving us their money and trusting us, and that maybe we should really focus on them. So novel concept, but we've been building that for 4 years. And so our team, does that. We work with a lot of the operational areas to really kind of, bring in client perspective and help them redesign processes and journeys with the client in mind. So bringing that outside in perspective, we run all of the VOC, the voice of the client listening platforms, and do all of that work and bring that into the organization. And then our group also does the UX, UI for the client digital platforms. And I'm starting to get more involved in the distribution side there as well. And we've also recently added innovation to our portfolio. So the innovation function, formal function, kind of lives in our shop, and our chief innovation officer is now part of our team. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of everything. We're kind of weird in a good way, I think, but that's the story.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, Scott. I think we first met at one of Limra's groups. Wasn't it the social media council? Yeah,
I think it was. We were kind of the pioneers for trying to push that into the marketing deal, because they were running as separate things, and that was back when that social media was its own thing, and everybody just wanted to do contents just on social media. And then,
Laura, that was controversial when I was there with Scott. We had people from other carriers trying to think, oh my gosh, should we have a Facebook account or not? And it's kind of funny how it goes. Everything goes around.
Oh yeah, the hard hitting stuff like what is how to post and why should you do it and should you be here, should you not be here? And now obviously you don't even think about it. It's a different thing.
Well, and Scott and Scott, I think if I were to, I would describe you as probably one of the most forward-looking people in this industry who actually has a ton of common sense. So, I mean, I see why they put you in that job, and I'm sure, I want to, let's double click and understand some of the successes you've had over the last couple of years, or learnings.
Sure.
But, we just take a step back. You mentioned television. I mean, isn't this business just like so much of this is about telling stories? And I'm sure what you did at a television station, right? I bet it's not that different today. You're just telling a different story to a different audience, I'm assuming. You're thinking about the story you're telling to the customers. You're telling the story the story you're telling to agents. I mean, right, wrong, or different, what skill has is common in all these different functions you've had over the last
I think
years?
communication and I mean storytelling is a great example, and I think that's why you see a lot of journalists, for instance, when they realize that the lifestyle's pretty bad, the pay stinks, and it's you're not out there doing Woodward and Bernstein stuff every day. When you've covered your hey, the Powerball is $40 million, let's go down to the convenience store and talk to what people would spend the money. When you do that about 30 times, you realize this ain't exactly the Peabody award-winning stuff I was looking to do. But those skills, because and what's cool about what was cool about TV, especially in the skills you develop in broadcast journalism, is you have to really learn to condense, and get to the point quickly. And I think that's something that has served me well and serves a lot of communicators well as they kind of get into different businesses, and certainly in ours. And whether you're telling that story externally to clients, trying to help them understand the value. I mean, as we all know, we are selling products that, for the most part, outside of, an annuity, say, a lot of these products, for you to actually get the value out of them, something horrible has to happen to you. You have to get into a car crash or you have to die, in which case you're not getting any value out of it, but you're just, from the peace of mind. But being able to tell that story and help people understand the value and motivate them to do this and spend money on this and feel good about that, I think you're right, Paul. That's a pretty big skill. And I think that also helps internally. Anybody, I've always kind of considered myself an intrapreneur, right? I don't have quite the guts to be an entrepreneur. Friends with a lot, know a lot of the same people you run into, Paul, and I admire them, and we need them. I'm not quite that. I'm radical and rebellious in the air quotes, like for a corporate stooge, right? It's all relative. I'm not out there running my own business and putting it on the line there like they are. But I think being able to tell that story and help your own folks inside understand the why you need to do something. Why do you need to make changes? Why do you need to explore different avenues and look at things and question things? I think that's a skill that is very transferable.
Have you seen it change over the last 2.5 years? So we were all in person, not all of us, the majority, I would say, are in person. We used to being that. And then we went all remote. Have the skills had to change? Have you seen, the way that you message? You said, obviously the use of video. We're, having a video portion to this podcast as well. You hear a lot of the conversation. Is it long form? Is it short form? What platforms to be on? What have you seen in terms of evolution over the last 2.5 years?
I think it's mostly that there's not any one thing. You have to be diversified in your communicating and you're relating to people, whether that's people that work for you or people that you work for, whether that's partners or startups we're working with. It's it can't be like the old days where, okay, we show up at the office and we do our regular meeting and that's how we do it, or we send you an email. You've really got to personalize it and tailor your approach to the audience and to the different people you're working with. Some people dig being in the office all the time. Some people like to be home all the time. Some people, like me, I like the hybrid because I get a little crazy if I'm home too much. And I get, but then I go to the office sometimes and you're like, man, why did I drive 45 minutes in traffic to get on, Teams meetings or whatever that I could do from my own desk? So it's just, I think you just have to be versatile. And that's probably the biggest change in getting out of this mindset of it's going to be this or that. And when you're on LinkedIn or anywhere, you see a lot of camps, right? People that are arguing that working from the office is the devil, and companies that have any expectation of that are stupid. And then you have the other side of people saying, hey, working from home is not pretty, and I'm always looking at anything going, I don't think anything's that much of a dichotomy. It's a little bit of both. And the people who are versatile and adaptable are the ones who are, I think, going to do well going forward.
What's the biggest benefit that's come out of the pandemic, having to go remote, for your company and your especially innovation and how you're working with customers?
Well, I think, for the innovation front, we do a lot, as a lot of companies do, a lot of, deal flow sessions and a lot of meeting startups. And in the past, it was probably tampered down a little bit because either have to do a visit or, we're part of a plug and play tech accelerator out in California. And so it'd be, okay, we go out there twice a year, we meet a bunch of people, we see what we're interested in. And I think getting out of that habit of having to have everything personally has opened us up to, being able to meet with people so much more and try different POCs with different companies that we may not have even been exposed to before. So I think that's probably been a benefit on both the, corporate side and the startup side, and especially regarding innovation and just the access and you can visit so many more people, and that's become the norm. So I would say that accessibility and flexibility is probably the biggest benefit I've seen.
So Scott, talk a little bit about your team. You said that you do some weird, great things, and it takes some weird, great people, I think, to make those things happen. Not having met them, but being on what I would consider a weird, great team myself. Tell us a little bit about, what are the types of people that you work with, and do you think that those people, were they born with this, greatness, or is it something that can be learned along the way?
Well, I think, and I'm assuming, Laura, when you talk about the weird part of your team, that's all driven from Paul. So we get
Yes,
that.
Absolutely.
It is.
Good. And you're bringing the like perfect side, the good side. So, but you need both. You need both. You need a balance. For us, we're really looking for people. I think you have to, whether you're just changing in general or you're looking at innovation within a company or whatever, it really starts as a mindset. And the people who are going to lead that cannot, we don't control all of it, and we're not trying to control all of it and centralize all of it, because you just can't. That's not practical and it's not sustainable. But the people who are leading it and who that is their full-time job really need to have that mindset. And you have to be able to, like what we talk to our people about all the time is, you basically are going to live your life at the edge of things. And that's an exciting place to be. A lot of us are attracted to that because it's different. You're seeing things that not everyone else is seeing. You're trying new things. You're pushing. You're always pushing, and that's exciting. But if you don't have that mindset, it can wear you out, grind you down, and spit you out pretty quick too. Because you have to understand that seeing all of that and being able to get there is not enough. Because you have to be able to translate that into action. You've got to be able to turn that into change and deliver value back to the company and to the clients. Because they're not, we also tell our people, they're not paying us to keep us off the streets here. I mean, this is a business. So this is an investment they're making in us, whether that's the client experience side or innovation. The company has decided that's worth some of our capital, because we think there's going to be a payoff on that in the future. And so you have to always have that mindset, but you got to be willing to push. And so I think our team does an exceptional job of being able to overcome inertia, being able to be persistent, and understand that it's small steps. It's a lot of small steps. We're not after the big bang. We're very agile and we're very much iterative. And, if we can make it 10% better today than it was last week, that's a win. And we just keep going from there. So you're really looking for people like that, and I think our team excels at that.
Yeah, and Scott, on some of your LinkedIn posts, I think you've had some really good insights in terms of connecting business outcome strategies to what you're doing. Now that said, metrics are great. When you've got something that you kind of know works, you're trying to optimize something, right? Like, listen, I'm going to optimize my ads. I'm going to optimize. Sometimes you actually have to reinvent stuff. And, it's a challenge sometimes to say, listen, I know I could make the wheel go a little faster, but I want to go over here and build, instead of a wheel, it's going to be a dish. And I'm not sure how to measure this. Have you ever been in a situation where the innovation you're proposing couldn't be measured easily?
I think it's all how you kind of frame it up in the different stages of innovation, right? You have to create space for that, where you can measure it, but your measurement may not be an ROI metric. It may not be a financial metric. We don't look at every proof of concept POC that we do as, okay, we're going to try to deliver 10% return on this or whatever. A lot of times it's just being clear about what are you trying to learn and what are you trying to do? What's that threshold that if it does X, if we see, and a lot of these are the partners that you're working with do have, a hypothesis. Hey, we can cut your costs by 10% on whatever this process is, or we can generate A, B, or C. So you are looking for some of that to see if does this thing do what they say it can be. But a lot of it is just setting up front and saying, we just want to see how this works. And you've got to be okay with that. I think a key, though, is taking a portfolio approach to your innovation. If you do that, you're going to be more apt to take some of those things like you're talking about, Paul, where I don't know what this is going to be. Let's explore it a little bit. You don't want that to be probably the majority of your work, because you'll go bust pretty quick and it's hard to pick up momentum on that sort of thing. But you need to carve aside and say, hey, 10% of what we do in here is going to be, what I'd call disruptive innovation or that kind of thing, where we're looking at new business models. We're looking at totally different things, and we just want to learn. We just want to see it firsthand, and we're willing to, pay a little bit of money and spend a little bit of time just to learn. And then it's being clear about what are you trying to learn? Did you do it? And do you socialize that? And how do you apply that in the future? You may not go forward on that. And then the majority of your, innovative projects are a lot of it is operational, right? And there you can see returns. And that kind of funds, I think, your ability or the credibility to do some of the more out there things. Because we do enough where we're trying to deliver a value. We're trying to say, hey, and we always start from the client perspective, or we start from the business strategy, and we're trying to solve problems. We're not just, most of the time, it's not innovation just because, hey, we want to go, do fun stuff. We do like to do fun stuff, and we get to do a lot of fun stuff, but it's got to lead us somewhere ultimately. And so a lot of those, are just the kind of, yes, we did this. It shaved X amount of time on this sample. We think this is something we want to do. Let's expand it. And then some of them are just weird, and we learned, and that's cool, and we'll move on.
Okay. So portfolio, tell us more. How many buckets, kind of what's the weighting, the projects, is going to get the return and get and generate the internal political return, right? To do some of the more interesting, yet risky projects.
Yeah,
I think about it.
I mean, we think about it, like I said, there's kind of a small portion that you're trying to balance it out and say, we want to make sure as we look at our projects, our POCs, whatever we're doing, that, let's say 10% are the really out there stuff. And, maybe 60% is more operational. And that's what you're trying to improve a specific process or get a specific result. And then there's kind of a group in between that maybe you're pursuing just different concepts that people are interested in. Well, we want to see, using blockchain for contracts. We don't know if that's going to work or not. And I'm not a blockchain expert, and people have tried to explain it to me, and I've read, and I don't know that it's going to sink in for me. So I'm not leading any blockchain efforts personally, but that's the kind of thing that we do look at and explore. So it's kind of those main things, and you're going to be weighted more toward the iterative operational stuff, but you have to carve aside. It feels like 10% or so of your efforts is kind of what feels right to me for that stuff that is keeping you out on the edge a little bit. Because sometimes, too, you'll do that, and maybe that particular concept didn't work, but as you know, it could spark something that you just never know where these sparks come from. And that may lead you to something totally practical and, and operational, but you never would have even thought about that had you not been out playing with that edge stuff.
Do you have a favorite edge story? Has something that you went right to the edge brought you to a different location than you planned on being? You're like, didn't think that was going to happen, but the outcome is pretty darn cool.
Well, I think, we don't have, I don't have one that we've put into production on a POC thing, but I would say kind of our very existence is an example of that. Because when we started, the charge was sort of client experience. And you guys, we want to do that. And I asked, well, what does that mean? And no one really knew. Well, what do you, how do you want to measure this? And no one really knew. And do we have a team? And no one really knew. So we had to kind of invent it. And I didn't anticipate, when we started this, it was a lot of, I thought it would be, let's go to all the areas and let's put a list of all the things that suck, right? That for clients, okay, we do this stuff to clients and this all sucks and we should fix it. And we call that find and fix. And we quickly found out that is a bad way to do it. because you'll just get buried and you never know if you're making an impact. You don't know if it matters. And, we're insurance companies, right? So the amount of sucky things that we can do to clients is almost infinite. If you really start digging, you'll never hit the bottom sometimes. And I say that with love for our industry, but it's true. But what was interesting on the found ourselves on the edge was we really, a big part of our team turned into hardcore, like operational process consultants. And I never would have envisioned that when we started. But as you start bringing in the client data and the client perspective, you quickly realize that if you're really going to make an impact and make a difference, you have to get into that stuff because that's what matters. That's where, from an insurance company, that's where those touch points, those moments of truth, as we call them, are all fed by back end processes and all the different silos that contribute to things. And we quickly realized, man, if we don't get good at that, if we don't get good at helping them look through their data and setting service goals and measuring these things, and then coming up with, basically it's an internal consultancy now. We're not going to have an impact and we'll be gone. Like a lot of client experience teams didn't last very long. There was kind of that wave. Every company kind of did these things, and then you kind of see them disappear because they just turned into surveys and didn't really do anything with it. And so we found, so that's probably, Laura, the broader example I could give of finding ourselves on the edge and realizing we're in a place that we didn't think we were going to be. It's cool and it's what you have to do, but it wasn't, it was kind of way out there compared to where I thought we'd be.
Yeah. If you were to think of corporate innovation as fashion, right? What's the next flavor of the scene? Scott, in my head, it was, remember, kind of like when we did we're out with Limerick. Remember we did the tour. Okay, first you do the tours, right? We went out there. Laura, we hung out at Google, found their food stations. Twitter
was the
had
food
their
good?
Yeah, it was good. It looked good.
Very good. And free, which is really very appeals to me. So it doesn't take much.
Yeah. So you had sort of like the bus tour. We're going to take everybody on a bus and go visit people. I saw there was a whole phase there. Then it was, and Scott, I got to hear your telling a story. Then it felt like we had these spaces. You'd go there and everybody was working, and it was kind of like going to the zoo with the startups. This one's here, that one's there. It was kind of cool behind glass. Then startups that needed space, and so these spaces turned more into forums. It felt like, and then it was, well, why am I traveling? Let me pay this stuff to let's build the local zoo here. What's next? If you just hired an innovation officer, first of all, challenge me and tell me your version of the story. I want to hear this. And then what's the next chapter here for corporate innovation? What does it look like?
I think you're dead on. I think when we started, it was, we don't do any innovation. We're insurance. So now let's just go to the headline companies that when you think innovation, so you go to California, like you said, and you make your visits and you go tour Google, and they, and you feel like one of those small town tourists in New York City or whatever, it's like, ooh, free sandwiches. And, oh, look at all these colorful bikes. And wow, this is something. And so I think you're right. That's kind of where it was started, was more just looking outside and seeing what innovation was, even from the companies that we all read in the magazines and whatnot as being innovative. Then it's kind of, okay, the next phase was internalizing that in the industry. How do we do this then? Okay, we've seen how they do it. We want some of that. And I think, we didn't know. We knock around, and it's a lot of, like you're saying, well, great, let's just go to a bunch of these places, and we do the tours. But now we're at startups instead of touring Google. We're just going to even more places and seeing different things. And then it's like, okay, the phase I think we're moving into now, as we've kind of come through that, and and all of the logistical changes that you mentioned, I think it's really about internalizing it now. It's about making it core to the business. Innovation can't be this side job. It can't be this, skunk works thing that's off to the side. Yes, you have to create space for those experiments and the different things. But if it is not core to who you are and what you do, then it's not going to work. So that's the phase I think we're into now, is how do how do companies do that? I think there's still definitely a place for innovation as a function, leading it, but we tend to look at it more like we're here to enable it and support it and spread it versus trying to, we're going to go be the lab that comes up with everything and then foist it on the business and make it work. So that's really the phase I think we're into now, if that makes sense, in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, no, that it does make sense, right? And when Paul had mentioned, the industry, fashion, my mind automatically went to if the insurance industry was going to be a piece of fashion, in my opinion, it would be a pair of khaki cargo pants. So there's utility there, right? You can put some Google sandwiches in there. You can put whatever you need. There's some comfort, I think. I've never worn a pair. We're slowly getting used to things. We're feeling comfortable, but we're never going to be hip. We're never going to be like the thing, like that little black dress. So in thinking about, cargo khaki pants and what the industry represents, how do you bring the innovation and the enablement inside of your company? So at NASA, we're working towards that, and it's a focus of ours this year especially. But how do you do that? How do you get the people who might not like to stand right on the edge, who are more the cargo khaki wearing individuals? How do you bring them into the fold, and what have you seen to be successful?
Sure. No, it's great, and I get made fun of all that. I think you're right on what our fashion choices would be, or dad wear, basically. I find myself like as I get older, my kids, I'm like, oh my God, my entire wardrobe now is like cargo shorts and polo shirts. That's it. And I'm like, what happened?
Are
to
you
me?
wearing like the Teva with the wool socks too? Or are you not there yet?
I'm not quite there yet, but I have done the
Okay.
socks and sandals out to pick up DoorDash kind of thing before, and it feels right, which is probably the most troubling thing, right? That's the troubling thing when it doesn't bother you anymore. But I think you're right. But I think what it is it's creating excitement and safety at the same time. So we try to get people excited about these things, but not spooked. And that's where iterative comes in. You can't come in and you can't make these proclamations that, well, we're going to upend everything we do. And that's another reason why we take a very partnership collaborative approach, because what we found is when the business areas or the operational areas themselves are in the driver's seat with you, if they're part of it, they're seeing it from the beginning, and they're also shaping and informing it, because you're centering it around what are their business problems and their opportunities, not just like blockchain. We're going to do blockchain stuff, which, great. What does that mean? I think when you get people involved, and then it kind of demystifies it a little bit, and then you get people excited, and you have to celebrate those things. And you also have to celebrate the lessons and change the focus to where not everything is about, the ROI on that particular thing. It's more tied to the strategy and how does this fit and what did we learn and how cool was that? And celebrate people shutting something down that didn't work. It's a direct function of what you highlight and celebrate and create space for. And then I think the other key thing, and maybe the most key thing, is you have to have top level support. I mean, it's got to come, the work has got to be done from the grassroots, and people need to get energized and do it. But if you do not have, the senior team, and it's not a corporate focus, and they're not declaring that as something that you're going to be good at, it's not going to happen. Because eventually people will revert to, okay, well, they don't want it really, and I'm not going to get rewarded for it. And I'm likely going to be, punished, so to speak, if I do something there that doesn't work, because I don't feel like this is really something they care about. So I'm going to try to give them what they actually want. So you've got to have that top level support as well, or, you're doomed.
Yeah. Scott, this was terrific. Laura, what do you think? Final thoughts, questions?
Yeah, Scott. Yeah, for sure. So I have two questions. First is, we talked a little bit about what is old is new again. Do you think that will we ever see anything on the fax machine again? Client facing.
Well, I like to joke. What do you mean, see it again? Or you guys work in annuities and stuff? I assume that's
still happening.
Yeah, I always tell people like time travel is possible. All you have to do is go try to apply for insurance or take out an annuity. You'll have time travel in a second. So we keep
Yeah.
the fax machines, the fax business humming. I'm surprised they don't have parades for the insurance thing. Um, but that's
Because
part
there's
of the
something there.
problem, right? I mean, it's how do we get out of that? And and there's regulations, all sorts of weird stuff that causes us to do different things. But I think a key to attacking a lot of that too, Laura, is not asking. I think we all went through that phase where we're like, well, we've got all these forms and these things that we have to fax in. Well, we'll just digitize them, right? So what do? We just create fillable PDFs and we put them on our website. And a lot of these, you still have to print off and fax in, right? But you can go get them online. And so we say they're digital, but they're not. But rather than attacking it and saying, well, how do we digitize our forms or our processes? It's taking that next step and saying, what is this process really trying to do? Deconstruct it there. Well, we're trying to get data, right? Or a signature, whatever we need from the client or whomever in that deal. So rather than looking at it like, how do we just take this crappy analog process and create a crappy digital process out of it, which doesn't really improve anything, just makes bad things happen faster. You got to step back and say, what do we really need? And how do we design for that? How do we build for that? How do we innovate for that? Digital gives us such an ability to do it, but you could misuse it, same as anything. And then hopefully the fax machines will eventually be just a tale told by the elders of these magical things that.
I love it. And my follow-up question is, what is your why? You're clearly passionate. You're enthusiastic. You're living on the edge. You're almost to like the Tiva and Woolsock stage of your career. What is your why?
I just I like being part of change. I like making an impact. I think that's true of a lot of people on our team that just met with did skip level meeting, for example, with everyone in our group recently. I do that regularly. And I asked them that kind of same question, and what motivates you? And it's impact. And I think there's no better place than kind of at the edge of those things, or where you're bringing this, the strategies that are coming out at our company, the external trends, the emerging technology. We kind of live at the nexus of those three things, and that's exciting because I like to make an impact. I like to be part of building new things, changing things. I'm not the guy that you plug in when it's like, this thing's going perfectly well and we just need someone to make sure that it gets from A to B to C to D. That, like, I get so bored with that. So that doesn't motivate me. It's really just making an impact. And then it's helping, watching our team and the people we work with and helping them take advantage of these opportunities. I've, like you mentioned, the stage of your career you get into, you start realizing, like when I'm in meetings, I made a Debbie Gibson reference in a team meeting a few weeks ago, and no one knew who I was even talking about. And I felt like I realized that was one of those aha moments when I go, I'm like the older person now, and so it's my job to help out the people that, just as I was helped out by, great leaders along the way. And that's the other thing that motivates me now, is helping get people, excited about this and seeing where they go, whether that's with our team or they go somewhere else and do great things. That's another big part of the why.
This is great, Scott. Tremendous hanging out on a Wednesday afternoon before a big holiday. Appreciate your time. It's just great. It's thank you for all your work you do. I think you've done a tremendous amount of work and given back to a lot of these industry committees, and I'm sure you're having a great impact on the people who are working for you. So, look, let's stay in touch. Want you back? Okay,
absolutely. Anytime.
One day we'll get back to Hartford.
Yes, I got to get back to Hartford. Not in the winter. I will not be there in the winter, but it is very lovely up there. So I appreciate that. But no, thanks for having me on, guys. You guys have a great podcast. The conversations are always interesting, and it's just been an honor to be a small part of that. So thank you for having me.
Great. Laura, thank you. Scott, thanks. And join us again next week for another episode of the Reimagine Podcast.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information about this company and other great startups at imagine.nfg.com.